The cafe door chimed softly as someone entered, breaking the spell. Imani pulled back first, chin lifting, spine straightening, armor snapping back into place. She took a steadying breath and reached for her coffee, as if she hadn't just let a man who grounded her flight kiss her senseless. "Don't get smug," she warned, eyes sharp. That didn't mean anything. Jin-woo studied her over the rim of his cup, unbothered, almost pleased. "You're lying again." She rolled her eyes. "You're exhausting. And yet," he said mildly, "you're still sitting here." The words landed heavier than she liked. They ate, tteokbokki so spicy it made her eyes water. Chicken feet she pretended not to enjoy, and then absolutely did. Jin-woo surprised her by rolling up his sleeves and diving in without hesitation, sauce staining his fingers, a rare grin flashing when she stared. "What?" he asked. "You," she said. "You're not supposed to know how to do this." "Do what?" "Be normal." His smile faded, not entirely, but enough. Normal is a luxury. She paused, then softer. "So is kindness. You choose when to use it." His gaze locked onto hers. Something unguarded flickered there, quick as a match strike. "You noticed?" "Of course I did," she said. "I notice everything." When they stepped back into the night, the air had cooled. Jin-woo draped his coat over her shoulders without asking. She meant to protest. She didn't. They walked, slow and unhurried, through streets that smelled of rain and oil and sugar. No bodyguards. No entourage. Just them and the city. "You know," Imani said, breaking the silence, "if you think intimidating me is how you win." "I don't want to win," he interrupted quietly. He stopped walking, turning to face her. "I want you to choose." Her throat tightened. "Then unflag my passport." He didn't hesitate. He pulled out his phone, tapped once, twice. "Done." She stared at him. "Just like that." "I told you," he said. "One dinner." Suspicion warred with something warmer. "Why?" "Because cages only work if the door is open," he said simply. "Otherwise it's just a prison." She studied his face, the lines he kept hidden, the weight he carried so easily it fooled everyone. Slowly, deliberately, she handed him his coat back. "I still leave tomorrow," she said. "I know. And I don't promise anything. I wouldn't insult you by asking." They stood there, the city humming around them. This time, when she stepped closer, it was her choice. She rose onto her toes, pressed a kiss, not soft, not yielding, but deliberate, to his cheek. "For the record," she said, lips near his ear, "you still have a lot to learn about being decent." A corner of his mouth lifted. "Then teach me." She walked away before he could say more, heart racing, smile threatening to break free. High above, Seoul glittered, unaware that something dangerous and magnificent had just been set in motion. And for the first time in a very long while, Jin-woo Han didn't feel like a man in control. He felt like a man chasing a queen. The airport goodbye was supposed to be clean. It wasn't. Incheon hummed with its usual choreography, rolling suitcases, boarding calls, glass and light and motion. But Imani felt every step like resistance. Her passport had been cleared within minutes, just as promised. No delays. No drama. Too easy. She reached the security line, then stopped. She didn't turn around immediately. She didn't need to. She felt him the way one feels a storm before the clouds arrive. "Miss Banks," Jin-woo's voice came from behind her, low, controlled, dangerous in its calm. She exhaled slowly and turned. He stood a few paces back, hands in the pockets of his dark coat, looking maddeningly unbothered for a man who had bent ministries and grounded planes for a dinner date. No bodyguards. No entourage. Just him. "This is where you dramatically tell me not to go," Imani said dryly. "Save your breath." "I came to say goodbye," he replied. She arched a brow. "That's new." "Yes," he said simply. "So is letting go." That made her pause. He stepped closer, stopping just outside her personal space. "Your flight leaves in 40 minutes. Gate 23. Window seat." She frowned. "How?" "I pay attention," he said. "You should be used to that by now." She crossed her arms, defensive. "So this is it. You play God for 24 hours and then decide to be noble." His eyes darkened, not with anger, but restraint. "No. I decided not to lie to myself." He held her gaze. "If I cage you again, you'll break the bars. And I don't want you broken." Her chest tightened despite herself. "So what do you want?" she asked quietly. He leaned in, just enough that only she could hear him. "I want you to leave thinking of me. Wondering. Choosing." She scoffed weakly. "Arrogant." "Yes," he agreed. "But not wrong." A boarding announcement crackled overhead. Imani hesitated. Then, before she could overthink it, she reached up, fisted the front of his coat, and pulled him down. The kiss was not sweet. It was fierce, claiming, a promise and a warning wrapped in heat and teeth and breath. For a heartbeat, the entire terminal disappeared. When she pulled back, her eyes were blazing. "You don't own me," she said. "I know," Jin-woo replied, voice rough. "That's why I want you." She released him, stepped back, and picked up her carry-on. "Don't follow me," she said. "I won't. And don't call me." A pause. Then softly, "I will." She shook her head, lips betraying her with a smile. "Goodbye, Jin-woo. Goodbye, Imani." She turned and walked through security without looking back. London did not cool her down. If anything, it made it worse. She threw herself into work, shoots, fittings, interviews, but Seoul lingered like smoke in her lungs. Jin-woo did not call. For 3 days. On the 4th, her phone buzzed at 2:17 a.m. "Jin-woo, you hate mornings. Drink water before coffee." She stared at the screen, pulse spiking. "Imani, is this your idea of flirting or surveillance?" 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Then, "Jin-woo. Both." She laughed despite herself. From then on, the game began. Messages with too much subtext. Phone calls that lasted too long. Silence used as a weapon. Jealousy carefully disguised as curiosity. And beneath it all, danger. Because Jin-woo Han did not rule Seoul unchallenged. The 7 Stars Syndicate had enemies. Old ones. Hungry ones. And when word spread that the Viper had let a woman walk away, they didn't see romance. They saw leverage. Thousands of miles away, in a dim boardroom overlooking the Han River, a man slid a photo across the table. Imani Banks. London. Smiling. Untouchable. "For now," the man said. Jin-woo stared at the image, jaw tight, eyes cold. "Touch her," he said quietly, "and there will be no country left that can hide you." The war had just found its queen. The first warning came disguised as coincidence. Imani was leaving a late-night fitting in Soho when a black sedan rolled past her. Slow, deliberate, too quiet. Tinted windows. No plates she could see. It didn't stop. It didn't follow. But it came back. Her driver frowned. "You know them?" "No," Imani said, spine straightening. "But they know me." That night, she didn't sleep. By morning, Jin-woo knew. He stood in his penthouse office in Seoul. City spread beneath him like a map he could redraw at will. Taeyang was already talking, names, factions, whispers, but Jin-woo heard only one thing. They had looked at her. "Cancel my meetings," Jin-woo said, voice calm enough to be terrifying. "All of them." "Boss." "I said cancel." He turned to the window, jaw clenched. "They think she has leverage. That's the mistake." Imani found the message waiting when she landed back at her flat. "Jin-woo, did a black sedan pass you last night?" Her blood ran cold. "Imani." "Yes." "How do you know?" 3 dots. "Gone." Then the phone rang. She hesitated, then answered. "Imani," he said. Not smooth. Not teasing. Raw. "Listen to me carefully." Her voice stayed steady. "I don't like being monitored. I know. I hate that this is necessary." "That's not an apology." "No," he agreed. "It's a warning." Silence stretched. "They've noticed you," he continued. "Which means this is no longer a game." Her grip tightened on the phone. "So what, I hide?" "No," his voice hardened. "You decide." She scoffed. "Decide what?" "Whether you want protection," he said. "Or power." She laughed once, sharp. "Those aren't the same thing." "They can be," Jin-woo said quietly. "If you let me show you." She paced, adrenaline humming. "And if I don't? Then I will still protect you," he said. "From a distance. Without your consent. And I will hate myself for it." That stopped her. "You don't get to decide my life," she said softly. "No," he replied. "But I will die before someone else does." Her breath caught. "Come back to Seoul," he said. "Not as my guest. Not as my hostage. Then as what?" A pause, rare, deliberate. "As my equal." The return was not quiet. Imani landed in Seoul 3 days later, not hidden, not afraid. Cameras flashed. Fashion blogs exploded. The Obsidian Queen was back. Jin-woo did not meet her at the airport. That was intentional. Instead, a woman did. She was older, elegant, sharp-eyed, wearing a tailored suit and a smile that didn't waste time. "Imani Banks," the woman said, offering her hand. "I'm CEO Min-jae, Jin-woo's chief legal counsel." Imani shook her hand. "So you're the one who makes his crimes look like contracts." Min-jae smiled thinly. "Only the boring ones." They drove, not to the Han Tower, but to a private residence overlooking the river. Warm. Lived in. Not a fortress. He wanted you to choose this, Min-jae said as they entered. No locks. No guards inside. You leave whenever you want. Imani raised a brow. And outside? Min-jae didn't lie. Outside is complicated. That evening, Jin-woo arrived alone. He stopped short when he saw her. She was barefoot, hair loose, wearing one of his shirts, unbuttoned, defiant, utterly at home. You came, he said. I said I'd decide, she replied. Not surrender. He nodded once. Good. They stood there, tension coiled tight. I read everything, Imani said. The syndicates. The debts. The enemies. The blood. And, he asked. And I realized something, she said, stepping closer. You don't need a queen to soften you. His jaw tightened. You need one to stop you from becoming a tyrant. Silence. Then Jin-woo did something no one in Seoul had ever seen. He knelt. Not dramatically. Not submissively. Deliberately. If you stay, he said, eyes lifted to hers unguarded, this world will try to consume you. Use you. Break you. She swallowed. If you leave, he continued, I will still burn it down to keep you safe. He held her gaze. But if you choose to rule beside me, I will never move without you again. Her heart pounded. She reached down, not to lift him, but to tilt his chin up. You don't kneel to me, she said firmly. You stand. He rose slowly. Because if I stay, she finished, voice steady, dangerous, this stops being your empire. A slow smile curved his mouth. It becomes ours. Outside, the river flowed on, unaware that Seoul had just gained a new power. Not a captive, not a muse, but a queen who knew exactly how to sharpen a dragon. The first rule Imani made was simple. No secrets. Jin-woo didn't argue, but he didn't pretend it was easy either. They sat at the long dining table overlooking the Han River, city lights bleeding into the water like molten gold. A tablet lay between them, its screen alive with names, faces, maps, lines connecting power to blood. This is the 7 stars, Jin-woo said. And these, he swiped, are the fractures. Imani leaned in, barefoot on cold marble, eyes sharp. She didn't flinch at the words extortion, arms, territorial enforcement. She asked questions. Precise ones. Why does this one still breathe? She asked, tapping a man's profile. He leaks. Jin-woo stilled. Slowly, a smile touched his mouth, not predatory. Proud. He hasn't been worth the trouble, he said. He will be, she replied calmly, when he realizes I exist. That was the moment Jin-woo understood. She wasn't here to soften the empire. She was here to evolve it. The enemies tested her within a week. It started small. A fashion sponsor pulled out. A rumor surfaced, manufactured, ugly, aimed to destabilize her credibility. Then came the invitation. A gala in Busan. Neutral ground. A trap wrapped in silk. Jin-woo forbade it. Imani went anyway. She wore black this time, no gold, no red. Power without ornament. Jin-woo watched from a private feed as she entered the ballroom alone, spine straight, smile unreadable. She's walking into a den, Taeyang muttered. No, Jin-woo said quietly. They are. When a rival syndicate head tried to corner her, smiling too wide, voice too oily, Imani didn't raise her voice. She raised a glass. I know why you invited me, she said lightly, loud enough for nearby ears. You wanted to see if I was real. The man chuckled. And? She leaned in, whispering just enough. I know about your offshore accounts. Your son's tuition. The judge you bribed last spring. She pulled back, smile radiant. You should leave early. Tonight ends badly for people who underestimate me. By morning, the man had fled the country. By noon, 3 others sent flowers. That night, Jin-woo didn't touch her. He watched her instead, standing at the window, city reflected in her eyes. You terrify them, he said. She shrugged. Good. You terrify me too, he admitted. She turned, surprised. I've ruled through fear, Jin-woo continued. Through inevitability. You rule through clarity. It's destabilizing. She stepped closer, resting a hand on his chest. You're still in control. No, he said, catching her wrist, not to stop her, but to ground himself. I'm choosing to share it. That was the first time he lost sleep. The second time was worse. A hit was ordered. Not on him. On her. They failed, but barely. When Jin-woo arrived at the safe house, blood still drying on her sleeve, not hers, something inside him snapped. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He ended people. Efficiently. Quietly. Permanently. When he returned, Imani was waiting. You crossed a line, she said, voice steady but eyes fierce. They came for you. And you answered like a king, she replied. Not a monster. She took his face in her hands. You promised no secrets. His breath shuddered. I was afraid if I told you how far I'd go. I already know, she said softly. That's why I'm here. He broke then. Just a little. Forehead to hers. Breath uneven. Stay, he whispered. Not as an order. Not as a demand. As a plea. She kissed him, not like before. Not fire. This was something else. A vow. The city adapted quickly. They always do. Markets stabilized. Violence dropped. Deals became contracts, not threats. The tabloids speculated. The syndicates recalibrated. And somewhere between strategy meetings and midnight meals, between power and quiet laughter, Seoul learned a new truth. The Viper no longer ruled alone. And the Obsidian Queen? She didn't take the throne. She redesigned it. The proposal did not come with a ring. It came with a dossier. Imani found it on the table one morning. Thick, leather-bound, stamped with seals from banks, governments, and corporations that pretended they didn't know Jin-woo existed. She flipped through it slowly, coffee forgotten. This, she said carefully, is not a prenup. No, Jin-woo replied from the kitchen, where he was doing something scandalous, burning toast. It's a ceasefire. She looked up. Explain. He joined her, sleeves rolled, expression grave. There are factions that will never accept you as my equal. Not because you aren't capable, but because you aren't bound. Bound, she echoed. You mean owned? He shook his head once. Recognized. She studied him, searching for the trap. Found none. You marry me, he continued. And the syndicates lose their excuse. The banks unlock channels. The politicians stop pretending I'm temporary. It stabilizes everything. And me, she asked quietly. What do I get? He didn't answer immediately. That alone told her everything. Finally, you get immunity, authority, and the right to end this if it ever becomes a cage. She leaned back, folding her arms. You're asking me to weaponize marriage, a tradition I already distrust, to rule an empire I never asked for. Yes, he said, but you'd be ruling it on your terms. Silence stretched. Then she smiled, slow, dangerous. You know what I hate most about this? He waited. That it makes sense. The announcement detonated. Markets surged. Rivals froze. Headlines screamed power couple and Obsidian wedding and the woman who tamed the Viper, which Imani promptly corrected in a live interview. I didn't tame him, she said, eyes cool. I partnered with him. Big difference. Behind the scenes, knives came out. Not everyone wanted peace. The past rose too. Her name was Yoon Era. Jin-woo hadn't said it aloud in years. Era had been his first alliance, his first mistake. A woman who knew how the empire worked before Imani ever stepped into it. She had disappeared after a failed coup attempt, presumed dead. Presumed. Imani met her on a rainy afternoon, by accident or fate, in a private gallery. Era was elegant, controlled, eyes too knowing. So, Era said softly, studying Imani like a puzzle. You're the queen. Imani smiled politely. I prefer architect. Era's lips curved. He always did like women who thought they could change the system. Imani didn't rise to it. Funny. He didn't need changing. Just honesty. That landed. Era's gaze sharpened. Be careful. Men like Jin-woo don't survive love. Imani stepped closer. Neither do women like you. They parted without threats. Which was worse. The night before the wedding, Seoul went dark. Not everywhere. Just enough. Power flickered. Phones died. A message rippled through the underworld. Choose your side. Jin-woo prepared for war. Imani prepared for surgery. She took control rooms, not weapons. Cut funding lines. Exposed secrets. Turned enemies into liabilities overnight. By dawn, the city came back online. So did the world's understanding of who really ruled. They married at sunrise. No crown. No throne. Just vows spoken quietly on a rooftop as the city breathed beneath them. When Jin-woo slipped the ring on her finger, his hands trembled. Still want this? He asked. She looked at him, the dragon, the man, the danger, the possibility. On one condition, she said. Anything. We never confuse love with power. He nodded. Agreed. They kissed as the sun rose. And somewhere deep in the city, the last old king realized too late. The Obsidian Queen had already won. Era's move came quietly. That was what made it lethal. 3 weeks after the wedding, while Seoul adjusted to the new equilibrium. A file surfaced on an international watchdog site. Not gossip. Not rumor. Receipts. Shell companies. Old syndicate money. Bloodstained foundations beneath gleaming towers. The kind of truth that didn't just bruise reputations. It invited sanctions, indictments, and wars dressed up as justice. The name at the center of it all wasn't Jin-woo Han. It was Imani Han. She read the headline in silence, tablet resting on her knee, morning light cutting across the room. Jin-woo was already on his feet, fury radiating off him in controlled waves. "She went for you," he said, voice low. "I should have ended her years ago." Imani lifted a hand. "No." He froze. "This is not a syndicate problem," she continued calmly. "This is a legitimacy problem. And killing her proves her point. She accused you of laundering my empire," he snapped. "Of being my front." Imani stood, smoothing her robe, eyes razor-sharp. "Then we don't deny it." The room went dead silent. Jin-woo stared at her. "What did you just say?" "We don't deny that the empire was dirty," she clarified. "We expose it. All of it. On our terms. That would burn everything," he said. "People would go to prison." "Yes," she agreed. "Some of them should." "And me?" he asked quietly. She stepped into his space, cupping his face. "You survive. Because you changed." His jaw tightened. "I don't deserve absolution." "No," she said softly. "But the city deserves the truth." This was the line. The one decision even Jin-woo Han could not make. The press conference shook Asia. Imani stood at the podium alone. No Jin-woo. No lawyer speaking for her. She spoke clearly. Calmly. Brutally. "Yes," she said. "This empire was built on violence before I entered it. No, I will not pretend otherwise. But power does not disappear when you close your eyes. It mutates. I chose to confront it." She announced audits. Reparations. Divestments. Names. The fallout was immediate. Markets plunged. Allies fled. Enemies surfaced. Jin-woo watched from a secure room, hands clenched, as the world tried to tear her apart. "They'll come for you now," he said later, when they were alone. She met his gaze. They always were. That night, he didn't touch her. He sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, head bowed, not in defeat but reckoning. "I spent my life making sure no one could hurt me," he said hoarsely. "And you walked in and handed me something I can lose." She wrapped her arms around him from behind. "That's called being human." Era disappeared 2 days later. Not dead. Gone. Some doors even queens choose not to open. The empire didn't fall. It shed its skin. Violence dropped to historic lows. Money flowed into places it never had before. Schools. Infrastructure. Restitution funds. And Imani? She became something rarer than a ruler. She became precedent. Months later, on a quiet evening overlooking the river, Jin-woo rested his head against her shoulder. "They fear you more than they ever feared me," he said. She smiled faintly. "Good. Fear is a tool. Accountability is a weapon." He turned, studying her. "What happens when they come again?" She met his eyes, unflinching. "Then we remind them." "Of what?" "That the dragon chose his partner," she said. "And the queen chose the fire." The city glowed below them, scarred, alive, transformed. Not perfect, but finally honest. "All right. We go deeper. This is where the cost shows." The attempt came without drama. No gunshots. No chase. No masked men. Just a car that didn't slow down enough. Imani felt it before she saw it. The wrongness of motion, the way the air tightened. Jin-woo's hand slammed into her shoulder as metal screamed and glass exploded. The world flipped. When sound returned, it was sirens and shouting and Jin-woo's voice breaking for the first time in decades. "Imani, look at me. Look at me." Blood traced a thin line down her temple. Not much, but Jin-woo had seen entire empires collapse from less. She smiled at him. Actually smiled. "You should see your face," she murmured. "You look mortal." He shook, hands hovering, afraid to touch her. "Don't ever do that again." "Do what?" "Almost die." The hospital room became a war room. Era's signature wasn't on the attempt, but her shadow was. Old allies who had smiled at the wedding. Investors who had applauded transparency in public and funded violence in private. The price of telling the truth was that liars recognized you as a threat. Jin-woo stood at the window all night, phone buzzing, commands dispatched in low tones. Imani watched him quietly. "You're pulling the dogs off their leashes," she said. "They went after you." "Yes," she replied. Because they believe I'm the weakness. He turned slowly. You're not. I am, she said evenly. And so are you now. That's the point. He laughed once, short, bitter. I ruled through fear. You rule through exposure. Both make enemies. She reached for his hand. But only one makes change permanent. Era resurfaced a week later. Not in Seoul. In Nairobi. The message was public, intentional. A recorded interview. Calm. Polished. Poisonous. They call Imani Han brave, Era said into the camera. But bravery without restraint is just arrogance dressed as morality. She is dismantling systems she doesn't understand. Imani watched the broadcast without blinking. Jin-woo crushed the glass in his hand. She's baiting you, he said. Yes, Imani agreed. Because she thinks I'll respond emotionally. And you won't. Oh, Imani said softly. I'll respond structurally. The counterstrike was quiet. Not arrests. Not accusations. Inheritance. Imani announced the formation of an independent global trust, seated with assets voluntarily surrendered by former syndicate partners seeking immunity through restitution. Era's name was absent. Deliberately. The message was clear. You are outside the future. Markets reacted. Governments followed. Suddenly Era's power network found itself stranded. Wealth intact, influence evaporating. Money without legitimacy is just weight. Era understood too late. Her second message never aired. The night it ended, Jin-woo found Imani on the terrace, city lights reflecting in her eyes. You won, he said. She shook her head. No. I survived. He stepped closer. I would burn the world for you. She turned to him fully then, hands on his chest. I know. That's why I had to make sure you didn't. Silence settled between them, heavy, intimate. After a moment, he asked the question he'd been avoiding. What kind of future do you want now? She looked out at the city. One where our children don't inherit ghosts. His breath caught. You're thinking about that? I've always been thinking about that, she said gently. Legacy is just violence that learned how to wait. He pulled her into his arms, forehead resting against hers. For the first time, he whispered, I don't know how to protect what matters. She smiled against his lips. Good. That means we'll build it together. Far away, Era boarded a private jet under a different name. Some stories don't end. They hibernate, all right. No branching yet. We let the story choose. The trial was inevitable. It didn't come with handcuffs or a midnight arrest. It came with stationery, thick ivory paper, embossed seals, polite language that hit a blade. International Court of Commerce and Human Rights. Request for appearance, Jin-woo Han. Imani read it first. Jin-woo watched her face, searching for fear. He found resolve instead, steady and unflinching. They're not asking, she said. They're daring you. He exhaled slowly. If I go, they'll strip everything. My companies. My immunity. My history. And if you don't, she replied, they'll turn you into a myth. Untouchable. Unaccountable. Exactly what you've been trying not to be. He gave a quiet laugh. You always know where to cut. She folded the letter neatly. This isn't punishment. It's transition. To what? To a world where power answers questions. The courtroom in The Hague was all glass and light. Nothing like the shadows Jin-woo had ruled from. Cameras flashed. Protesters gathered. Some held signs condemning him. Others thanked him for money that had saved cities while poisoning them slowly. Both were right. Imani sat behind him, not as his wife, not as his shield, but as herself. When asked why she was there, she answered simply. Because accountability without witnesses is theater. Jin-woo testified for 3 days. He did not deny. He did not dramatize. He did not beg. He explained systems the way surgeons explain disease. Precise, unsentimental, devastating. The world you live in, he said evenly, is built on compromises you pretend are moral because they are profitable. I did not invent that world. I exploited it better than most. Silence followed. Then the question that mattered. Do you believe you deserve leniency? Jin-woo glanced once at Imani. No, he said. I deserve consequence. But not erasure. Erasure teaches nothing. The verdict fractured the room. No prison. No absolution. A binding global restriction. Jin-woo Han would never again hold executive power in any multinational corporation. His assets would be placed in supervised transition, redirected into public infrastructure, education, and restitution programs. A king dismantled, but not destroyed. Outside, the air tasted different. Imani stepped beside him, fingers lacing with his. How does it feel? She asked quietly. Like dying without disappearing, he replied. She smiled. That's growth. They left Europe quietly. No press conference. No victory speech. Just a small house on the edge of a city that didn't care who they were. Mornings became coffee and arguments over books. Evenings became long walks and plans that didn't involve leverage. One night, months later, Imani stood in the bathroom staring at a thin blue line. She didn't cry. She laughed, then sat on the floor until the world steadied. When she told Jin-woo, he didn't speak at first. Then he knelt in front of her, hands resting carefully on her knees, as if the future were something fragile. I don't know how to be innocent, he said. She brushed her thumb along his cheek. Good. Then you'll be honest. Far away, in a city that thrived on forgotten people, Era watched the news on a cracked screen. Jin-woo Han dismantled. Imani pregnant. The world applauding. Era smiled slowly. They think the story is finished, she murmured. She turned the screen off. Some ghosts don't want redemption. They want inheritance. Do you want me to continue with that next scene? Comment for part 4. Subscribe button right now.